Hello and welcome to Live from the Eagle's Nest. That is a live view of the Eagle's Nest here at the National Conservation Training Center's grounds near Shepherdstown, West Virginia. And there you can see one of our resident pair of bald eagles. This happens to be Bella, the female, sitting on the nest. She's got a couple of eggs under her, and in just a few weeks, we're hoping to have some baby eaglets here. Again, you're watching Live from the Eagle's Nest, and I'm your host, Brett Billings. I'll be with you for about the next half hour, talking about some of the recent coming and going at the NCTC Eagle's Nest and what's going on there in the near future. We'll also be taking your questions, so if you have a question, you can feel free to post those in the chat on our YouTube live channel or on live stream. We'll try to get to those questions as quickly as we can. But again, we're here to provide information about what's going on at our Eagle's Nest. And there you can see just a little bit closer view. Gives you an idea of the size of that nest. It's probably close to 1,000 pounds. It's about 5 feet deep, maybe 6 feet across. And so definitely takes up some space. And the cameras also show a nice background there. Looking at some of the buildings at the National Conservation Training Center from up in the sycamore tree where it's located. So again, we'll be getting to your questions off of YouTube and live stream coming up in just a little bit. But first, we want to play you a video from just a little while back when the Eagles got a special visitor in the middle of the night. So we're going to roll a little bit of that footage for you there. And we'll have more videos later on as well. So this was from March the 7th, right about midnight. And there you can see both of the eagles. They're a little upset about something going on there in the evening. And if you watch the right side of your screen, you might get a glimpse of a visitor to the nest. There, did you catch that? We're going to roll that back for you and let you watch that one more time. So that is what we believe to have been a barred owl that maybe was coming up to check out the nest to see what was going on. And lo and behold, the barred owl found out that there was actually somebody at home at the nest and then decided to take off and go elsewhere. So again, we'll be taking your questions off of either YouTube or live stream if you'd like to find out more about our Eagle's Nest. We also want to thank our featured partners out there. So there's the Outdoor Channel that hosts our NCTC Eagle Cam feed, and our friends at Bald Eagles 101. We've also got our production team right here at NCTC, including Rob Garfinkel, who's our technical director, and Johnny McEachin, who is our engineer. You'll also be hearing the voice of Randy Robinson, who usually hosts these Eagle shows. He's off camera today, and he's going to be helping us read some of the questions as they come in. So again, thanks to all of our partners and the friends of NCTC that help make this program happen. And we really appreciate your comments and appreciate you watching. Let's talk a little bit about where the NCTC Eagle Cam actually is. So if you look at this map, you can see in the lower right there is Washington, D.C. And we are pretty much due northwest right up the Potomac River on the border of Maryland and West Virginia. We're actually situated on the West Virginia side, just a little bit to the northwest of Shepherdstown. And that is where we have about a 500-acre training facility, the National Conservation Training Center, which is part of the United States Fish and Wildlife Service. This is a view of the Potomac River, and you can see some of the buildings from the NCTC property back behind the trees along the top of the hill. But this is the view that the eagles get every time that they go out and go fishing, which is multiple times a day. As they cruise over the trees and looking down into the water for their favorite food, which is fish. And this time of the year, we have quite a few fish running by the river here at NCTC. Some of the various species of suckers are very present and spawning, so we see quite a few suckers getting brought into the nest during the nesting period. Also, walleye are making spawning runs up this stretch of the river. So occasionally we do see a walleye come in, but there's also various sunfish, catfish, bluegill, and bass species in this stretch of the river too. Probably more than you wanted to know about the fish in the Potomac River, but again, that's where the eagles get their sustenance, and that's what it takes to feed baby eaglets. So once again, this is a live look at what we've got going on here. You can see a little bit of wind outside today at the National Conservation Training Center. If you have questions, feel free to put those in the chat for the live stream channel or for YouTube, and we will try to get to those as quickly as possible. We've got some folks there, Mr. G. Kieslar, who's been watching the nest since 2006. Thank you for continuing to watch. They're from Illinois, and they've taken a few shots of the nest when they visited the facility in the past. So thanks again. We appreciate that you are staying tuned to what we're doing here. We've also got some other featured videos that we're going to go to here. So let's take a quick look at another one of our featured videos. And this one is going to give you kind of a nice look at what it looks when the eagles are not on the nest. Now, this was taken from a week or so ago, and you can actually look and see what we've got here is one of the eagles is on the nest, and since you see a little bit of dark feathering on the back of the head, that would mean that this is our male resident eagle, whose name is Scout. He's doing a little bit of settling in around the eggs there, taking off. That's one of their usual flight paths heading out towards the Potomac River. That also gives you kind of a really nice view of how high up they are. This is more of a close-up view of that. And again, this is from a little while back when we still had 3 eggs in the nest. Now, just a little bit of news from the NCTC Eagle's Nest is we currently only have 2 eggs. One of the eggs started to rupture, and so they actually moved most of that egg, I believe, out of the nest. And so it may have been that it wasn't viable due to some reason, or possibly from the cold weather that we've had recently. But we still do have 2 eggs in the nest. So this older footage still shows it when we had the 3 eggs in there, though currently we only have 2. This is a nice view of both of the eagles at that time from back on the 13th in the nest. All right, now we're back to our live shot from our eagle's nest there. And again, this is our female Bella, who is actually on the nest currently. And I've got some statistics to share with you. We are celebrating our 20th anniversary nesting season here at the National Conservation Training Center. We've had an active eagle's nest here since 2003 when they were building the nest, but the first actual nesting year was in 2004. And so since that time, in 2004, over the past 20 years, we've had a total of 47 eggs laid, and then 33 of them have hatched and produced 28 offspring that actually fledged and left the nest. So again, we've got quite the track record with nesting eagle pairs. It's not always been the same pair. Our first pair, which was Belle and Liberty, they were the resident pair from 2004 through 2011, and they produced 10 fledged young. And then we had Belle and another male, Smitty, from 2011 to 2018, and they had 14 eaglets, 10 of which fledged. I have more of the interesting trivia about the eagle's nest coming your way in just a moment here, but for right now, let's go to our next piece of video that we want to share with you today. This is our eagle's nest with one of the birds kind of overlooking there. The other one lands, and again, this was back a while ago, over a week ago, when we still had 3 eggs in the nest. And you can see there's actually a good-sized fish in the nest, and I believe that that looks like Belle that's going over there and having a little lunch on the fish. Well, that's the male, who is a little bit closer to the screen. And this is normal for them to spend a little time off of the eggs during the day, especially when it's warm out. They don't have to be incubating all the time, but certainly when it's colder and bad weather, they tend to stay a lot tighter to the nest than when it's a warm day out. Right now, I think it looks like both of them are more concerned with having a midday lunch than anything else. All right, and then we're going to head back to our live view from the Eagles cam, and we have a nice blue sky day here at NCTC. However, it's a little on the chill side. It was approximately 28 degrees here this morning and a heavy frost on, and a little bit of a breeze. And today I think we're going to get up into the 50s, but it looks like tomorrow the forecast calls for quite a drenching of rain overnight and tomorrow. So we may be looking at some very wet eagles starting this evening around 10 or 11 o'clock. So we'll keep an eye on that, and if anything significant happens, we'll make sure to let you in on that. Saying hello again to G. Kieslar, who is evidently a she. So apologize and thank you so much. Also wanted to let you know that if you have questions about the NCTC Eagle Cam or eagles in general, feel free to post those in the YouTube chat or in the live stream, and we'll be glad to get to those questions as soon as we can. We're going to go to our 4th piece of video now. We've got another nice shot here of what it looks like when they're approaching the nest. You'll notice how they ball their feet up so as to protect the eggs and gently lower themselves down onto the eggs when they're going to be doing some incubating. They actually have some bare spots of skin on their breasts called brood patches, and so what they try to do is to sort of wiggle around and snuggle those eggs up so that they're touching that skin for good transfer of warmth and heat to keep those eggs good and warm. And so you'll see them kind of shuffle around there to try and get those eggs positioned the best way possible to keep them warm. That's pretty common that they do that when they're up there. So we're going to check in with our reader, Randy Robinson, here and see if he has some things to add. So Randy, what are you thinking about as we approach, possibly another hatching of eaglets coming up in, maybe just a few weeks?
Yeah, it should be pretty soon, Brett. In fact, Annette has asked the question, what is the approximate date for the first baby eagle to hatch?
Well, that's a great question, because I know that you've got a show that you're doing, your episode of Live from the Eagle's Nest, coming up April 4th. And you could get a special guest visitor in the form of a little fuzzy eaglet during your show. So that's a real possibility. But as far as we know, about that first week of April is when we would expect those remaining 2 eggs to be hatching, or maybe even a little bit after that. Sometimes they take a little bit outside the 35-day window. They maybe take a little bit longer. Other thoughts or other questions, Randy?
Yeah, we do have some more, Brett, and a couple hellos. Jackie from Sherwood, Oregon. Lisa says aloha from Hawaii, and Braden from down in Shinston, West Virginia. So Peggy's got a question. She says those 2 large support branches on the sides of the nest don't look too healthy, and I seem to recall more of a canopy in the past. Have the branches been trimmed by staff, or have they fallen?
Well, that's a good point. And actually, we have skilled arborist tree workers come out here every winter to work on that sycamore tree. And there have been some dead branches up. In fact, you'll notice there's what looks like a post that's sticking out beyond the nest there. Some of those have been trimmed by those arborists so that the remaining weight of a dead limb out beyond that post wouldn't break the whole limb. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to add a few more years to the eagle's nest by keeping those dead branches trimmed close to the nest as possible. But so far it seems to be holding up well. If you look at this wide view of the nest, you'll notice that about 10 to 15 feet below the nest, there's a little horizontal structure. We've actually put a little platform down below the nest so that if part of the nest does fall, and little bits and pieces do fall out from time to time, that those would hopefully be caught by that horizontal platform and may serve as a start of nest number 2 in that tree at some point in the future if the nest that they're currently using fails at some point. So we are thinking about that for the future. All right, now we're back to our live shot, and it looks like Belle's doing a little egg positioning for us, and there you can see her rocking back and forth to get those eggs tucked in against her brood patches. Again, it is sunny today, but a little on the cool and a little bit on the breezy side. She's taking extra careful pains to make sure that those eggs do stay warm. All right, we've got some more video clips that we want to share with you from the past week or so. So coming up here is we've got another one where you can see a shot again taken from a while back from, I believe this was the 13th or so. It was taken from a while back, so there were still, I think, 3 eggs in the nest at that point. But you can see that that scout that's just flying in there, and they're doing a little vocalizing, so I'll be quiet and let you listen to them. Okay, I guess they were a little shy on that. But what you're looking at here is some pre-recorded video. Again, this is live from the Eagle's Nest from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service National Conservation Training Center. And there you can see a quick fly up from the resident male scout. And a little bit of vocalizing from his partner while he decides to have a fish sandwich for lunch. All right, we're going to take a quick look back to our original live cam here. And Bella's kind of giving the eye out there to the field. I don't know if she sees another bird circling around or something, but she's definitely, something's caught her eye, and she's keeping a very harsh gaze on it there to see if anything's going on. So we will keep an eye on that. We'll check back in with Randy now, see if there's any other comments that have come in here. Randy, are we getting any other comments or questions in?
Well, Colleen from right down the road in Charlestown says hello. And no other questions yet, but go ahead and feel free to send your questions in anytime. Peggy was asking about the canopy on that tree. Of course, our leaves are not out yet, so once the leaves pop out, the eagles will get some shade, but until that time, it's pretty wide open up there, and no shade as yet. So that'll take another month or so, a few weeks at least.
All right, thank you, Randy. Appreciate that. One of the questions I sometimes get is people say, "Hey, are your eagles still nesting there at NCTC?" And I say, yes. And they said, wow, those eagles have been there for a long time, you know, since 2004. So I said, well, we have had eagles here that long, but it hasn't always been the exact same two. It hasn't been the exact same couple. So the original couple that nested, they started working on the nest, actually, I think in 2002, and their first nesting season was 2004, was a pair that we called Belle and Liberty. And they actually had 21 eggs. They hatched 11 eaglets, and almost all of them fledged. 10 of the eaglets fledged. So they did very well. They had several years where they actually raised 3 eaglets. So that was a good pair there. And then starting in 2011, Liberty left, and it was Belle and a new male named Smitty. And they produced 15 eggs, 14 of which hatched, and then 10 of which fledged to leave the nest. So they also had a good run, and that took us up to 2018. And then 2018 to 2023, we had a new female come in, which is the one that we currently see now, which is Bella. And she had a male for those few years named Smitty. They produced 8 eggs, 7 hatched eaglets, and 5 of those fledged. And then Smitty is no longer with us. He's left, and so currently we have Bella and Scout. This is their first nesting season, but they've already produced 3 eggs. We still have 2 of those eggs that we think are viable in the nest. So that's kind of the short course on the different pairs of eagles that we've had here at NCTC over the years. All right, time to go back and show you a few more video clips from recent times here at the nest, give you a few more insights into what goes on there. So this next nest here, we have, looks like Scout flying in, and then taking a stick and setting it over what we call the crib rails. When they have eaglets, these extra sticks around the edge are handy for keeping those eaglets from accidentally toppling out of the nest. So they continue to work on and build that nest while they're incubating. And so you can see them there kind of looking around at the sticks and working on the nest to keep getting it in shape for the eventual arrival of some eaglets. All right, and then we'll cue up the next clip. All right, now this is nice because we don't often get a really good close-up of the birds, but this is our male Scout, and you can see those dark feathers on the back of his head, and that's what tells us that he's probably about 4.5 or 5 years old. He almost has a completely white head, and so next year he may have a completely white head, but this is back from a couple of weeks ago. We got a nice tight shot of him rolling what was then 3 eggs around. We currently only have 2 of those eggs. And then you can see him as he kind of tries to get those eggs positioned correctly under him so he can give them maximum heating and warmth. Oh, and this is a great shot of an eagle tongue. If you've ever wanted to see an eagle tongue, here you go. This is what it looks like. That's the business end of the eagle that takes care of tearing apart all their prey, chopping up the food and fish they bring into little bite-sized morsels that they're going to be feeding to their eaglets. So kind of a nice view. You can see how curved and sharp looking their bill is, their beak is. It is a very, very sharp, useful tool for them, but that's sort of a close-up of what the eagle's mouth looks like. And there you can see Scout pulling in some grass, and they do that from time to time to try and make sure that they're insulating both themselves and the eggs from any cold and wind that might be out there. And there we are. They roll these eggs about once an hour just to make sure that they're evenly heated and to make sure that nothing inside the egg gets overly attached. They keep things nice and loose inside there. So that's what it looks like as they're doing what we call the egg roll. They do the egg roll several times a day, so this is a nice good close-up view that you don't always get. And then the male sitting back down on the eggs and getting them in the right location for maximum heating while he's incubating. And the male and the female do share the incubating duties. I wouldn't say it's 50-50. I think the female probably does do more. We haven't actually run any statistics on it here lately, but it's more common to see the female on the nest. But she gets some rest breaks and chances to go out and stretch her wings and get a bite to eat down at the river. So Yeah, she does get a little break now and then. And so far, looks like Scout's being a good mate. He seems to be learning quick for a young male. This is probably his first breeding season, so he's had to learn quick and find out about incubation and keeping her happy and keeping her fed. So we'll continue to watch them over here. We'll have these live from the Eagle's Nest broadcasts coming your way about every 2 weeks. It's usually on a Thursday, but due to a scheduling conflict, we had to move this one to Friday. But generally, it'll be every other Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time that we'll be doing these broadcasts. And we'll also be rotating the host on the broadcast. Sometimes it'll be Randy Robinson or me. It may also be one of our newer hosts, Megan Birdie. She'll be joining us on a broadcast coming up in about 4 weeks. So we'll stay tuned for that. We're also looking to see if there's anybody out there connected with schools that might be watching this year. And then we're going to go back to Randy Robinson one more time before we finish the show to see if he has any last questions or thoughts. Randy, what else is going on?
Well, we have a number of questions in here, Brett. And yes, we do have some schools watching. Rosewood Elementary School over in Martinsburg. And we have a school, Ms. French's class, down in the southern part of the state in the Princeton area. And then Kelly Hansen replied here. This is her 4th and 5th grade class watching from T.A. Lowry Elementary in Shenandoah Junction, just down the road a few miles from us here. So I'd like to say welcome to all the school groups. And Braden Hood, that's the Lincoln High School Natural Resource class. Yeah, we love to have school groups on here, so thanks for joining us and for saying hello. And let's go ahead and go back to some of the questions now, Brett. So Edward is asking, how much of a break does Bella need in 24 hours?
Wow, Randy, that is a great question. It certainly varies. I think she feels a little more pulled to the nest when the weather is bad. I think it's mainly her when we see really horrible weather that's doing the incubating. When it's a nice sunny day, she probably feels a little bit more loosened up to go out and take a break. But that's just my anecdotal impression. Randy, what are your impressions about that?
Yeah, definitely. When it's cold and cold temperatures, the female's a little bigger, so she stays on the nest. But they do trade back and forth. I'd say just on average every couple of hours, let's say every 2-3 hours, give or take. But sometimes, yeah, like we said, if it's real cold or windy, she'll want to hang on the nest just because she's got a little more body heat with that bigger body.
That makes good sense. Yeah, I can see how that would be advantageous for the eggs to have the larger bodied, warmer parent there during the worst weather. All right, and we also have a note from Gloria Kiesler saying that it looks like Scout may be a first-time new dad, and that's right. As far as we know, he's young, probably his first nesting season, and so when we have some eaglets hatch, hopefully around the first week of April, yeah, he will be a first-time new dad. However, his mate Bella, she's done this several times, and so she is an experienced hand and experienced parent at this. So I'm sure that he will learn a lot just by observing her. Again, thanks for all of those folks that are viewing today. Make sure to leave us a note and let us know where you're watching from, and make sure to tune back in because we'll be having another show coming up in the not distant future here on Thursday, April the 4th at 1 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. We'll have our next live from the Eagle's Nest broadcast, where our guest will be Katie Fallon. She's the Executive Director of the Avian Conservation Center of Appalachia. And Katie's going to be talking about her work in bird rehabilitation and helping students get interested in birding as a hobby. So again, that's 1 p.m. Eastern Time right here on Thursday, April the 4th. Randy Robinson will be back in the hosting chair for that. Thanks again to our partners at the Outdoor Channel, Bald Eagles 101 and also our friends of NCTC and those other folks out there behind the scenes that help us make this show a success. Thanks everybody for watching, and we will see you next time.
Hey, Brett, we do have a few more questions coming in here.
Oh, you do have some more questions?
Let's
see if we can get a few of those done before we leave.
Yeah, let's answer these too. So Tessa Penwell, 4th and 5th grade art class from T.A. Lowry Elementary, says hello. And so here's a question from Braden. How far do they usually fly away from the nest? And let's say we're talking about nesting season.
I would say they don't have to go far. Literally, when we're looking at the wider shot of the Eagle's nest cam, the Potomac River is just behind those buildings that you see sort of in the middle of the screen. So they probably don't have to fly more than a quarter of a mile to get to the river, and then they may fly for a couple of miles up the river or down the river. We have a dam that's located just upstream of us about a half a mile. A lot of fish do tend to pile up there, so I would say that's one of their main hunting grounds. So really, they may not have to fly more than a couple of miles at a time to do most of their fishing. Randy, does that concur with what you have heard and experienced?
Yeah, just a few miles probably at the most during nesting season. They don't have to go far, and they do want to stay fairly close to the nest to protect it. But during the off season, they could wander 20 miles up or down the river. You know, you just don't know. So here's a question from Jackie. She's saying Smitty never came back, or what happened with him?
So we don't know 100% about exactly what happened, but I can tell you a little bit what we do know from observation. Let's see if I can find where I had written that down here. Let's see. Let's see here.
We last saw him in early November. We saw him in September, just kind of intermittently, October, November. We think he got chased off by another male, but we can't say for sure.
Okay, good. Well, thanks for bringing that up, Randy, because I wasn't 100% sure about that. We did have a couple of questions in here about which way the nest is facing and which way the eagles are facing. So, Randy, if you could, when we're looking at the wide view of the nest, we can see there's some buildings back there, and of course we see that post that kind of sticks up out of the end of the nest, what we call the lookout post. What directions are those?
Well, the easiest way to think of it is that post that sticks up would be the north. So think of the nest as a compass, and that post would be north. So to the right, if you see the sunrise in the morning, it's coming up from the east, and that would be to the right of the nest as we're looking at it. So left of the nest would be west, and then behind the nest, or at the where you see the tail feathers of the eagle now, that would be south. That's pretty much due south. So that's the easiest way to look at it. Think of that post as the north end of the nest.
Gotcha. And if we look at a wider view, we have a shot of the field with a sycamore tree in it that can show you another view. So that is basically looking sort of to the north then, or to the looking to the south.
Yes.
Right, so that's looking to the south. All right, any other questions, Randy?
Yeah, we do have one related to the landscape here. Cameron's wondering how much has the surrounding landscape changed in the last 20 years that the nest has been active?
Well, just here on NCTC, we've had quite a bit of land use changes. We have a very active land management program now. A lot of the areas out there that were former shrubby or scrubby, they've done some eastern prairie grassland restoration. So we have a lot of these very tall native grasses like Indian grass and blue stem, little blue stem, big blue stem, switchgrass. These are all sort of historic grasses that would have been here during the times when the Native Americans would have been hunting through this area. And so what we've seen along with those grasses, it's been very good for the small game in this area. So things like rabbits, ground nesting birds, groundhogs, a lot of those things have done very well with some of the management changes right here at NCTC. Most of the areas surrounding NCTC are either rural or actual farms. So there hasn't been a whole lot of land use changes like that. Randy, you live not too far from NCTC. What kind of changes have you seen?
Well, one of the most noticeable things are these eastern red cedars. You see that green foliage that we're looking at? Pretty much everything on the ground that's green, besides the grass, those are eastern red cedar trees. And they grow very fast. In fact, there's a small, it used to be a pond, it's kind of overgrown now, you can't see it, but that clump of, you see the little red building, it has red siding on it, that's what we call the West Pond building. But there's a large grove of those eastern red cedar. Those have all come up in the last 20 years. You know, when I arrived here in 2001, and that area was completely open. There wasn't a single tree there. In fact, it was mowed for a while. And in 20 years, all of those eastern red cedars have come up in quite a thicket there. The deer like to go in there because it's so thick they can get a windbreak. Hey, we've got a couple other questions here, Brett. Let's see. What is the lifespan of an eagle? Mary would like to know.
Wow, that is a great question. I don't know that I've gotten that question before. I'm not 100% sure. I would say maybe around 20-ish years. Randy, have you heard differently about that?
Yeah, that's pretty good average. I always say about maybe 20, 25 in the wild, maybe 35 if they're in captivity, you know, have veterinary care and so on. The oldest eagle that I've ever heard of was found up in New York. He was banded, so they knew he was 40 years old, and that's pretty wild. That's pretty old for being a wild eagle. But I'd say 20, 25 on average in the wild. So Ken wants to know, is this streaming video available to watch later today, and can I watch past video streaming? It is, Ken. We will post the link we'll actually post it after the broadcast is done. It'll take a little while to process it because somebody else wanted the one, I think Antoinette wanted the one from March 7th. We'll post both of those in the chat on the actual Eagle Cam when we're done here. Now the YouTube posts go up automatically, but we found it's a lower resolution version. And we'll have to, takes a little time for the high resolution version to build up. So if you look at a link on YouTube and it doesn't look very good, try reloading it later on and then the higher res version comes around. Jackie's saying, can you give us the dimensions of the nest so folks know how just how big it is?
So as far as I understand, when the eagles spread their wings in there, we estimate their wingspan to be about 7 feet across, and that seems to be about how wide the nest is. So something in the neighborhood of maybe 7 feet across by maybe 6 or so feet deep. It is a massive nest. It's been added to every year since they first started constructing it in 2002. And then, Randy, what do you think as far as estimates of the weight of something like that?
Wow, they can get very heavy. I've heard, you know, one of the oldest nests on record some years ago was up near Lake Erie. They estimated that to be 2 tons. But I always just guess that this nest could weigh easily a half ton, you know, 1,000 pounds. And that's when it's dry. Can you imagine if this nest was full of heavy, wet snow? You know what a shovel full of snow weighs. So that could easily add several hundred pounds to it. But dry weight, I'd guess this nest could weigh close to a half ton.
Wow, that is impressive. And of course, a way to think of that is like maybe a small sports car up in the tree. So, yeah, it's a massive, massive nest. And even when you're on the ground at NCTC and you look up, from hundreds of yards away, it's obvious that it is a very, very big nest. So, over the years, the eagles have worked hard to put that nest together, and we've also worked here with the NCTC staff and some of the certified arborists that we know to try and maintain that tree as safely as possible, to try and get as many years out of it as an eagle nesting site as we could. So kudos to all those folks on the ground at NCTC that work to try and help make sure that that nest stays in good shape from year to year. It's kind of a thankless job to go out there on the coldest day of winter and trying to check the nest, check the wires and the various boxes below that transmit that signal to us and so forth. But it does take people to do some work to bring you the eagle's nest and the eagle cam.
So we've got two more questions. One from Antoinette: where will the active link be? We'll post the link for the recordings in the actual Eagle Cam chat room back on the Outdoor channel, Antoinette, and give us about a half an hour and we should be able to get those recording links in there. And then hello to Edward, all the way listening from Cape Breton Island in Canada, way up there, Cape Breton Island. So here's a question from Mary. Do the eagles there at NCTC get banded?
No, in fact, we don't really have a call for banding them. As a former threatened and endangered species, there were some banding, especially back in the 1960s, 70s, and up into the 80s, as they were trying to study the eagles and find out about their movements, their migration habits, and things like that. But those populations have recovered to such an extent now that scientists don't need that data as much anymore. And then it does, put the birds at risk to some extent when you have to climb up in the nest and band them. It certainly stresses the parent birds out and so forth when you're climbing up there to band the young. So we actually don't band our eagles here because there's really not a pressing reason to do that. So, Randy, anything to add to that?
No, I think that covers it pretty well. It used to be, when eagles were being reintroduced from Alaska, or they'd catch young ones in Alaska and Canada, places where they're very populous, to bring them down here. They would band them so they could track them. That was 30, 40 years ago. But now, since the eagles have rebounded, there's no call, and it's a little bit of a intrusion to band them. You've got to go up into a tree to get the young ones and put them in a bag and bring them down and band them and then take them back up. But that was done for a long time, but not so much anymore now that they're coming back.
All right. Any last questions before we go, Randy?
Let me check one more time. Let's see. Do eagles really break off their beak in midlife?
I haven't heard much about that. I know that their beak is an ever-growing structure, just like your fingernails. So by eating and, kind of rubbing it occasionally on bits of wood, they do have to kind of keep it filed down. For those eagles that are in captivity, they actually have special people that do what's called coping, where they actually come and they file that beak down and cut parts of that beak down, because if an eagle's beak grows too large, it makes it difficult for them to eat. So it does have to be worn down, but in the wild, I think that they usually do that just by the hardness of the different things that they're either eating or carrying in their beak. I mean, you can see all of the sticks that are up in this tree have been brought here by eagle beaks. So that, to some extent, keeps them filed down. Correct, Randy?
That's right. In fact, there was they don't really break off, but they do sharpen them, like you said, Brett. There's a very good book for those in elementary school teachers to check out called Beauty and the Beak. B-E-A-K. And based on a true story, a bird up in Alaska, an eagle, an adult eagle, was shot and it destroyed part of its beak. So they captured the bird. Of course, it couldn't eat without a beak. You know, they would starve to death in the wild. They captured the eagle. They brought it down to Montana. A veterinarian and a fellow that helped her was able to, he actually 3D printed a beak out of a very hard plastic. And then the veterinarian took that beak and glued it on, and it was successful. You know, the eagle survived. And so it's a great story, Beauty and the Beak. Check it out.
Yeah, and you'll be able to check that out right here on April the 18th, because we're going to be having our new host, Megan Birdie, interview the authors of Beauty and the Beak. So if you're interested in that book and finding out more about eagle literature in general, make sure to tune in to that particular episode of Live from the Eagle's Nest. That'll be on Thursday, April the 18th, coming your way at, I believe, 1 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And then you can find out all about how 3D printing played a part in giving that eagle back its life. All right, Randy, any last things before we go?
Oh, I just pass along what Antoinette said here. Thank you so much for all you do. My class in the past, nursing students during COVID were watching with us while we were stuck at home. So thanks for that note, Antoinette.
All right, well, thank you everybody for joining us today for Live from the Eagle's Nest. I'm your host, Brett Billings, and it's been a pleasure. Make sure to keep checking out the Eagle's Nest on the Outdoor Channel, and then we will see you next time coming up on April 4th when Randy Robinson will be here to give you the latest update live from the Eagle's Nest. Bye-bye.